Welcome back to the Snowpoint Cast. Today we're going to be talking about a deck from 2006 called Mewtric. Mewtric won the World Championships in 2006. A guy named Jason Klaczynski, who won 2 other World Championships. This was the very first World Championships that he won. And this is his list. So let's get right into it. Starting off with 4 Electrike. So Electrike's got 50 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to fighting. Electrike is your best starter because of Recharge. Recharge is a really, really good attack. So for 1 lightning, search your deck for a lightning energy card and attach it to Electrike, and then shuffle your deck afterward. So just honestly, Recharge is so good because you get to attach a lightning, recharge even if it's your first turn, and then you're all of a sudden ready to disconnect on your second turn. No matter if you have the energy in your hand, you just surge it from deck and then attach it. So that's great. Quick attack is definitely a mediocre attack. You can use it in some situations, 10, flip a coin plus 20. Definitely not, I mean, if you have to use quick attack, use it. But recharge is really great because of Manectric EX. So Manectric EX is 100 HP, single retreat, a resistance to metal, and a weakness to fighting. Disconnect is the attack that recharge is really, really effective with. So you recharge on the Electrike, and then all of a sudden you have enough energy to disconnect. So disconnect for lightning and colorless does 40, and then your opponent can't play any trainer cards except supporter cards from his or her hand during their next turn. So I mean, that trainer lock is really great. There's a couple other things in the format that trainer lock, like Houndoom. But this is honestly the most consistent way of trainer locking in the format because you do it for 2 energy, and recharge just means you're doing it right away. You can also attack with Mew in this deck, so you just have so many outs to keep your disconnect lock. So disconnect is a great attack. I mean, you stop stadiums from being played, so you can be really oppressive with your own stadiums. You play Battle Frontier and Cursed Stone because you don't play very many Pokemon with powers. I don't even think you play any. Well, you play 1, but yeah, so disconnect for 40, definitely really good. Keeping the trainer lock in play, really good against rare candies as well. Stage 2 decks, this deck was really oppressive because Stage 2 decks were really good in the format, and when you have to play rare candy against disconnect, it's not a very fun time. So Mega Shot is the second attack. So for a lightning colorless, discard all lightning energy attached to Manectric EX, and then choose one of your opponent's Pokemon, and it does 80 damage to that Pokemon. So that's a really good attack as well. Mega Shot to end a game is usually how you're going to be ending a game, because you can just pick off one of your opponent's stage 1 or basic Pokemon on their bench. Honestly, Mega Shot is a really good attack, but something that I would be wary of if you're playing this deck is breaking your disconnect lock, because whenever you start a disconnect lock, it just becomes more powerful the more that you chain that move, and Mew EX and Manectric let you chain it really well. And when you choose to break it with Mega Shot, that can allow for a lot of plays for your opponent. They can just drop a bunch of rare candies, and that can mean trouble for you for sure. So I would just be wary when you're using Mega Shot if it results in a disconnect lock break. Okay, so for Mew EX. Mew EX is a really, really good card as well. So single retreat and a weakness to Psychic. The Pokebody is called Versatile. Mew EX can use the attacks of all Pokemon in play as its own. So you get Manectric's attack, and you play a bunch of other really cool attackers that are good with Mew. But really, Mew is there just so your disconnect is consistent. You do have a couple other attackers that Mew is good for, but Mew lets you use the attacks on your opponent's board as well, because you do play not Rainbow Energy per se, but you play Rainbow outs. You play Multi-Energy and Hollands Magneton. So you have outs to hit Rainbow Energy to hit any attack on the board that you need. So it just, no pun intended, it's a really versatile card. The attack on Mew, first you get a colorless power move, search your deck for an energy card and attach it to Mew EX, shuffle your deck afterward. Then you can switch Mew EX with one of your bench Pokemon. I mean, maybe power move if you don't have a Manectric EX in play, but honestly, if you ever have 2 energy attached, you should be disconnecting unless you have some really crazy play in mind. Okay, so getting onto the tech Pokemon. So Roselia is actually a really, really good attacker. You play 1 Roselia so that Mew can copy its attack. So it's got 60 HP, single retreat, and a weakness to fire, and Flick Poison is the name of the attack. So for a single colorless, so any energy in the deck, switch your opponent's bench Pokemon with one of their defending Pokemon. So it's pretty much, you gotta switch them out, and then the new defending Pokemon is poisoned. So it doesn't seem amazing, but it's actually really powerful because of how Poke Powers work in this format. So if you have a special condition on you, your Poke Power isn't activated. So that's really effective against stuff like Dragtrode. You're able to bring up a Dragonite and then shut it off. You're also able to do stuff against Meta Knight. You're able to bring either a Metagross up or bring one of their Dragonite up as well. There's just a lot of ways that you can slow your opponent down. Or Macargo as well. If they have a Macargo in play and they're using Smooth Over, you can just Flick Poison whatever you want, bring in the active, and then just chill on that first turn. You can have that first turn of, I'm going to bench a Roselia, I'm going to bench a Mew, or let's say you have immune the active, you can bench your Roselia, attach an energy, and then flick poison to slow your opponent down if they hit that like turn 2 Macargo or something while you set up before you get the disconnect lock. It's also really good just to like bring something up active. If you want to bring something active and then start disconnecting it, there are situations where you can break the disconnect lock to flick poison, and it is effective. Okay, so you play a Regirock X as well. You don't really play this for the attack. This is actually a tech. So for Nats this year, Nationals, Rye Eggs won. It got both first and second. A really good deck. Cool rogue deck. And, you know, if you're going into the World Championships, you have to play an answer for the deck that won Nats because you're probably likely to at least see a couple of it throughout the day. So this is the tech against Rye Eggs. So Regirock X, 100 HP, 3 retreat, and weakness to water. Healing Stone is the reason it's the tech. So Raichu does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon with powers and bodies. So you do play a lot of Pokemon with bodies like Mew and the Roselia and the Regirock, and you play a Girafarig as well that you want to have on your bench. So that can be really suspect. So what you want to do is attach enough energy to Regirock to start attacking. And because Healing Stone is a thing, it heals 1 in between turns. So no matter what, even if a Rye Eggs tries to snipe you out, they're not doing any damage because they do 20 and then their turn ends, and in between turns you heal 1 and then back to them you heal another 1. So they can't hit that snipe damage to add up on you over time. And if you keep your bench restricted, you can definitely take a game against Rye Eggs, and that's the purpose of this card. So tonnage on the card does the attack you attack with. 3 fighting a colorless, 60. You can do 60 damage plus 20 more damage. If you do, Regirock does 30 damage to itself. Okay, so Deoxys TX. This card is actually very bad. Mainly because you can start with it, and starting with it, I mean, having a free EX on your board for your opponent to potentially take with a POW hand extension at some point is definitely bad. Psychic weakness is not the best. The reason that Jason played it is so that he could have a Pokemon that gets through effects of attack. So he didn't want to just auto lose to a Safeguard Pokemon. There's a Shuckle in Unseen Forces that has Safeguard. So I mean, if your opponent plays one of those, you don't really have an answer because you only play EX Pokemon. So having an answer to that is really good. That's why I played the Deoxys TX. He did write an article about this format, and he said that he would cut the Deoxys TX for a Mewtwo Lightning Delta because it has essentially the same attack for like less energy. You get more value out of it essentially, and it's not an EX Pokemon. So definitely a better call, and I would play that over this if I was building this deck today. Okay, so you play 2 Hollands Magneton as well. So Hollands Magneton is really interesting. When you have a Pokemon with an energy on it, this is how Hollands Magneton works. So it's a Pokemon, but it can also be an energy. So you can attach it like this, and then the energy attached goes back to your hand. And then Hollands Magneton is worth 2 rainbow energy. So you can use that to disconnect lock. You can use it to tonnage if you really want to tonnage. You can use it to Mega Shot as well. So it can be 2 lightning. And actually a kind of cool play that you can do with multi-energy is you can go like, okay, Hollands Magneton, get the multi back, attach a multi, disconnect, attach a multi again. Now, since the multi-energy, so if you have 1 multi-energy on, then it's worth any energy. But if you have multi and another special energy, so the only other one you play is multi. So if you have 2, they're colorless. And when you attack with Mega Shot, this is the only lightning energy on this card now. You've played 2 multi, so now these are colorless. So you discard this, and then next turn, if you have another Electrode or a way to recover it, you can just get the multi back, and then all of a sudden you can double Mega Shot in a turn. So that's kind of a cool part of Magneton. Getting a double Mega Shot off can be really, really effective against your opponent, depending on what the board looks like. And it honestly it hits your rainbows, and it's Pokemon or energy consistency as well, because every Pokemon search, every evolution search that you play also searches that card. So you're just searching for energy as well. Okay, so you play a Girafarig as well. So Girafarig has 70 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. You play it for rear sensor, so it's a body. Each player's active Pokemon, excluding Pokemon EX, can't use any Poke Powers. So this is a counter against Jirachi. The point of this deck is to lock your opponent, and Jirachi is one of those cards that can just, you know, even though I'm trainer locked, I'm just going to look at the top 5 cards in my deck and pick one that's good for me, you know, whether it's not a trainer or an energy or whatever. And when you're able to search a Girafarig, you just bench a Girafarig, and then if your opponent is playing a Jirachi reliant deck, they just don't get that power anymore. So a really effective locking card in this deck. Okay, so you play 4 Dual Ball as well. Dual Ball, flip 2 coins for each head, search your deck for a basic Pokemon card, show it to your opponent, and put it in your hand, shuffle your deck afterwards. So that's really great for finding Mews. Gets you a Roselia as well, a Girafarig, and an Electrike. Just honestly, finding your basics is good. You don't play a Holon engine, so you have to play Dual Ball. You also play 2 POW hand extension. So because your damage output is so low, and just the strategy of your deck usually goes down on prizes first, just because you're not doing a ton of damage and you're slowing your opponent down. And over time, when you're hand disrupting them and then also locking their trainers, over time, that means that they probably lose. But initially, they can just pop off on you and take the first 2 prizes. So when they do that, having POW hand extension is a great asset to be able to come back on your opponent. So POW hand extension, if you're down on prizes, you can use one of 2 effects. First effect, you can move an energy card from your opponent's active Pokemon to one of their bench Pokemon. So that's great with stuff like double rainbow energy and scramble. If your opponent has a basic Pokemon like a Jirachi or something, you could just move it to that and then it gets discarded. Or you could POW hand extension and just bring up one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So being able to hit stuff for a weakness is cool as well. You play a Manectric and a Mew, and there are a fair amount of things that are weak to lightning and psychic in this format. So being able to manipulate your opponent's board to hit what you want is a really powerful part about that card. You do play 2 switch as well. So all of your Pokemon that attack have a switch cost, and some of them have really heavy switch costs, like Regirock and the Deoxys. Deoxys has 1, but you don't want to be paying that at all because you have to be attached turn 1 and then maybe a recharge, but if you don't hit the recharge, attach turn 2, disconnect. And the switch just makes it so you don't have to attach to the active to get into the active to disconnect. Okay, so getting into the stadium lines, you play 3 Battle Frontier, so really, really good card. Each player's normal type evolved Pokemon, dark type evolved Pokemon, and metal type evolved Pokemon can't use Poke Powers or Poke Bodies. So there's so many cards that this affects, and I've gone over it in a million of my videos, but the main ones that you really want to shut off, being able to shut off normal type Pidgeot, quick search. If you're able to search your deck for any one card, that really is not great when you're trying to slow your opponent down. When they get to search their deck for 1 card every turn, it means that you're not locking them very well. So being able to Battle Frontier to lock that is really good. Dark type Pokemon, there's a bunch of dark decks that this is just really effective against. You shut off all their powers and bodies, which is like really good. And then the metal type Pokemon, Meta Knight as well. Meta Knight's a really good draw. When you use Meta Knight, you can look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put one of them in your hand, and then put the other 3 on the bottom of your deck. So not only are you putting those trainers to the bottom of your deck, but you're also plussing cards. So this just shuts all that off, and it's a really effective part of the lock. You also play 1 Cursed Stone. So Cursed Stone, anytime between turns, each player puts 1 damage counter on his or her Pokemon that has a power. So the only one in this list with a power is a Deoxys, and like I said, you're supposed to cut that for a Mewtwo, so it's not even relevant anymore. But Cursed Stone is great because you get to lock it into play with a disconnect. So if you scot for a Cursed Stone, and then you lock it, if your opponent has a bunch of Pokemon with powers, they're just going to start taking ticks on those, and if you can just outlast them, you win the game. And this deck is really, really effective at outlasting a long game against opponents. Okay, getting to the supporters now. So you play 4 Rockets Admin. Like I said, you're usually going to be going down with this deck. You do play a really strong trainer lock, but because of the 40 damage, it sometimes means that you're going to lose a Mew before you start to really make a big impact on your opponent's game. And that's actually great with Rockets Admin because you can lose a Mew, say a Mew dies, and then you bring up a Manectric and you start disconnecting with a Manectric. When you Rockets Admin into a disconnect, it's essentially a judge disconnect because if your opponent's killed a Mew, they're now at 4 prizes. So you Rockets Admin them, they shuffle down to 4, and then you disconnect lock them. And that can honestly be enough to take a game. And I'm sure that Jason took a ton of games just going, oh, you're going to take the first 2 prizes, Rockets Admin, disconnect. Oh, you didn't draw anything. That's really unfortunate. Or you did draw anything. That's cool. I play 3 more admin, so I'm going to hit you with it a couple more times. So definitely a really strong card in combination with disconnect. Really, really good card. 4, Professor Elm's training method. So this is to find your Manectrics. It also gets Hollands Magneton, but you got to find that Manectric to get the disconnect locked. So playing 4 just means you're consistent. Honestly, Jason's list is one of the most consistent lists in this format. It plays 16 supporters, which is like a lot of supporters. I really like the consistency there. So it also plays 4 TV Reporter. So kind of an interesting card. Draw 3 cards and then discard any 1 card from your hand. So that can be good for thinning. You do admin a lot, and sometimes once you're already set up, you don't need dual balls. Depending on the matchup, you don't need Regirock or Deoxys or Girafarig. So there is a fair amount of stuff that you don't really care for that you want to discard. And thinning so that later in the game, when you want to Rockets Admin your opponent, is great because you can draw, have this big hand of like 10 or 12 so that you can adapt when your opponent has something so that you can, choose whatever stadium or choose whatever card that you want to play and returns on your opponent if they ever come at you. And also having that discard is great because, like I said, Rockets Admin, later in the game, you shuffle your own head back and you don't want to be drawing the junk later on in the game. Okay, so 3 Scott. Scott is a great card in this deck. So search your deck for up to 3 cards in any combination of supporter cards and stadium cards. Show them to your opponent and put them into your hand. So this just means that you're Battle Frontier locking really early. And as soon as you're disconnect locking, you don't need to worry about losing a stadium war, because you can just Scott, play a stadium, disconnect, and then your opponent can't even play stadiums. So that's great. One of the best parts about Scott is you can go Scott, I'm going to get an admin, a Cursed Stone, and a Battle Frontier, and then you have so much control over what your board is. Like, you can Scott for those, and then if you want to switch to Cursed Stone at some time, you can do that. So that's definitely a really powerful part about Scott, is it lets you have a lot of options. You play a Mary's Request as well. So draw a card if you don't have any stage 2 Pokemon play, draw 2 more cards. So another just draw 3. That in combination with TV Reporter lets you have 5 just straight draw 3 cards. And when you're disconnect locking, there's not a ton that you need other than really to attach. You just need to be getting up on attachments. So just seeing those cards so that you can consistently attach is, I think, the main reason that you play a lot of those Charon style cards. Okay, so for multi-energy, for the energy, the multis, like I said, you can use 2 of them in combination to get a double Mega Shot off, which is really cool. But they just let you attack with whatever on the board, right? Like, you can attack with the Regirock if you need to. You can use your opponent's attacks. They just let you be really versatile with Mew. And then you also play 11 lightning energy. So a lot of lightning, and honestly 15 energy seems like a lot, but with Mega Shot you do discard them sometimes, and sometimes you need a double Mega Shot. And the more important part is finding that energy for your Electrike turn 1. You need to have that turn 1 attach off so that you can get the turn 2 disconnect. If you miss an attach turn 1, it just means that you're not disconnecting turn 2, and you need to be disconnecting turn 2. So the high energy count really does make sense. But yeah, this has been Mewtric from 2006. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to them. But thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.